Chapter 13, Section 3, Sum and Difference of Angle Identities. So this is going to be another way for us to find exact values for our trig functions. So we're going to be using our help sheet, and when we look at those formulas, we want to try to find a pair where we are using at least one of these numbers. Now we want to try to use both if possible, because that means less work for us, but we need to use at least one. And then on our help sheet, we are going to be using this section up here to help us with our exact answers. So down here, if you forgot, the x value is the answer for cosine. So for example, cosine of 30 degrees would be the square root of 3 over 2. And then the sine of 30 degrees would be 1/2. So we're going to be using these numbers to help us find exact values, along with the sum and difference identity formulas. Now we are going to be focusing on these top four, but I did want you to know that it also exists for tangent, but you'll be doing more with that in pre-calc next year. So again, we're going to be splitting whatever degree they give us into two numbers. So that's what this is showing. And then we're going to be plugging those into the formula. And then from that, we're going to be using these values up here to simplify. So if we take a look at our first example, we have the sine of 15. So I'm going to choose to split that as 45 minus 30. Now for some of these, there will be more than one combination that you use, or there could be more than one combination, so it doesn't matter which one you pick. Just pick whichever one you find first. Okay. So now by splitting it up as 45 minus 30, my 45 is going to be the u, and then 30 is the v. Okay. And I am dealing with sine, and we are subtracting. So on my sum and difference formula, I'm going to find sine, and then I want to make sure I'm using the one that is subtracting. And then this is what we are plugging it into. So this is my u number, my v number, u number, and then the v number. All right, so that means I'm going to have the sine of 45 times cosine 30, and then minus cosine of 45 sine 30. And now I'm going up to this section and I'm plugging in these values. So for the sine of 45, that is this middle bar right here, and it's the y value. So that is going to be the square root of 2 over 2. I don't know if I can fit both of these. Oh, there we go. All right, so that is going to be the square root of 2 over 2 times, and then the cosine of 30 is the square root of 3 over 2 minus cosine of 45. So here's my 45. That is going to be square root of 2 over 2. And then the sine of 30 is 1/2. And now I'm just going to simplify that. So order of operations tells us to deal with multiplication first. So when we multiply, this will be the square root of 6 over 4. And then this will be the square root of 2 over 4. And now, since my denominators are the same, I'm just going to write it as one big fraction. So my final answer for this is going to be the square root of 6 minus the square root of 2 over 4. All right, so we take a look at the next example. So we have cosine of negative 135. So I'm going to split this as 45 minus 180. Okay, so this is my u and this is my v. And then I'm dealing with cosine and I am subtracting. So I find cosine where we are subtracting, so that's this one. So this is the formula that I'm going to use. So that means that I will have cosine 45 times cosine of 180. And we always use the positive number, even though we're subtracting. Okay? And then this will be plus sine 45, sine 180. Okay, so now I am back to the top corner where we are using this information to find the exact values. So cosine of 45 is the square root of 2 over 2. And then 180 is over here, so that's going to be -1. And then we are adding the sine of 45, so that's square root of 2 over 2. And then the sine of 180 is 0. Okay, so now we simplify. So this part right here just cancels out, and then -1 times the square root of 2 over 2 is negative square root of 2 over 2. All right, let's keep going. So sine of 105. I'm going to choose to split this as 60 plus 45. So that's my u, that's my v, I have sine, and now I'm adding. So on my sheet, I am using this formula right here. So that is going to give me sine 60 times cosine 45 plus cosine 60 sine 45. All right, back to my top corner using this section. So let's see, sine of 60 is the square root of 3 over 2 times the cosine of 45, square root of 2 over 2, plus cosine 60, so that is 1/2, times the sine of 45, so square root of 2 over 2. So simplifying the multiplication first, so this will be the square root of 6 over 4 plus the square root of 2 over 4. And I have the same denominator, so I'm just going to write it as one big fraction. So square root of 6 plus the square root of 2 over 4. So you guys are going to notice that our answers are going to look similar. So notice how this one resembles the one up here. So that's just going to happen for these problems. And if it's addition, the order that you are writing your top numbers also doesn't matter. So if you used a different pair and it came out to be a different order, that doesn't matter. All right, next one. So this one I can't use 2 of these numbers. I can only use 1. So I'm going to choose to split this as 270 plus 15. So here's my u and my v. Okay. So we're just going to plug it into our formula like normal. So cosine and then the addition one. So we're using this top formula to plug it into. So this will be cosine 270 times cosine 15 minus sine of 270 and sine of 15. Now we don't know the exact answers for cosine 15 and sine 15 because that was not a part of that chart in the corner, but we can figure out the 270. So 270 is here, so the cosine is going to be 0, and then the sine of 270 is -1. So this is going to be 0 times cosine 15, and then minus, and this is a -1 times sine of 15. Okay. So that means that this cancels because 0 times anything is just 0. And then if I have a -1, that's going to give me sine of 15. Okay. And now we're just going to repeat the process. So for sine of 15, I'm going to choose to split that as 45 minus 30. So that's my u and my v. And now I'm going back to my sheet. So I'm subtracting with the sine. So we're using this 4th line for our formula. So this will be sine 45 cosine 30 minus cosine 45 sine 30. Okay. And then back up to my little corner sheet. So using this to come up with my exact answers. So sine of 45 is the square root of 2 over 2. Cosine 30 is the square root of 3 over 2. Cosine 45, square root of 2 over 2, and then the sine of 30 is 1/2. So now if I multiply, this will be the square root of 6 over 4 minus the square root of 2 over 4. Denominators are the same, so we're just going to write it as one big fraction. And that is going to be my final answer for this problem. So anytime you can only find one of those numbers that we listed at the top, you'll have to go through the process twice.